Okay, let's talk a little bit about Rodney Hill. This story that came out was interesting, and then we'll probably wrap up for the day. We'll get out of here a little early, depending on how long this takes. But Rodney Hill now at Arkansas, correct? Um, Story came out this week. I think it was 247 Sports ran it, but if it wasn't, sorry, and my apologies. But it got aggregated everywhere else and just kind of became common knowledge. But talked about him leaving Florida State and how that went on. And man, I'm a huge proponent of NIL. Richie and I and Harlan all give to the battle's end, and certainly would encourage you to. And this doesn't have anything to do with the battle's end, but just kind of maybe one of the pitfalls of NIL that people should be aware about and probably should be talked about some. As it's a new space, anytime there is a new space that people feel like they can get into, a lot of times people jump into it just trying to make a quick buck or trying to see how they can take advantage of it for themselves. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, if you're still acting ethically and you're still doing right by the people that you're working with and not scamming people, right? If a new business popped up and you thought, man, I'd be really good at that, and you jump into that business because you want to see if you can make it for your family, like that's not necessarily bad. But if you're screwing people over to do it, then yeah, you're kind of a piece of crap. So anyway, NIL's no different, right? New space. A lot of people tried to jump into it, and some for really good motives, some for not so much. But Rodney Hill story came out this week, and this was a quote that I'll read, and then we kind of talk about it a little bit. But he said, "Not many people know, but my parents were running my money and stuff like that." Hill alleged, "My parents got a bad agent, and he was texting other schools like he was me. So when that got back to the head coach, Mike Norvell, obviously, I had to leave Florida State. During that time when I had to leave, I wasn't trying to leave. I didn't want to leave. So I just had to, and the portal was closing up." So he talks about how agent kind of going behind his back, trying to get more money, kind of screwed him over, bad leadership, bad advice. I've heard similar stories. The truth is usually somewhere in the middle of all of that. But it sucks, and if you're Mike Norvell, you absolutely, I don't think Mike Norvell was necessarily wrong. You have to surround yourself with good people. I mean, my kids are little right now, but certainly something that I'll try and teach them and instill in them when they get older is, man, you got to make good decisions on the people that you're hanging out with, because sometimes they might do dumb stuff. And if you get caught in a car with XYZ, and you might not have brought that, but you trust yourself with the people that did have XYZ in the car, you're in trouble, And so you do have to surround yourself with good people. It's not just necessarily this NIL game, but it does stink. And I heard similar things to this. And so I watched I watched the highlights of the Pitt game this weekend, and Rodney Hill was going off and had some really nice runs in it. And it sucks that he's not going to be there. It sucks that he's not going to be at Florida State, because I think he'd be six deep at the running back room if that was the case. But yeah, it's frustrating that somebody kind of got in there and obviously Rodney has different representation since then, and sucks that was what went down. Like, kind of got taken advantage of. Didn't necessarily want to leave. Like, wasn't a bad character guy. Like, there have been guys we've asked to leave that just don't necessarily fit the mold. It sucks that was kind of the way that all that went down, and kind of does show you that, like, man, there are people that are in this for the wrong reasons. And when a field like NIL is new and different, a lot of people, like I said, want to jump in and see how they can benefit themselves. And again, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that. I mean, coaches are getting paid $10 million a year to coach football, and that's certainly benefiting them. So I don't think that's bad. But man, if you're screwing kids over to do that, then you're kind of the lowest of the low. So anyway, those are some of my thoughts on that. Richie, I'm sure we'll kind of go back and forth on it a little bit, but the Rodney Hill story sucked to read this week.
Yeah, and this is the ugly side of NIL. And quite frankly, this was happening before NIL, right?
Sure.
There's always been handlers that will look, they see a extremely talented kid and they say, okay, I got a good relationship with him. What can I get out of it for me? That's their dream. That's their thought. Because and the people listening, if you're listening 47 minutes in, you're not surprised to hear that kids have been getting paid well before NIL, like going back. Look at the Gran Turismo or Gran Torino, whatever it is, from SMU back in the day. Like this thing has been going on for a while. Now it's out in the open, and now it's kind of giving a black eye to the NIL, the idea of what it should be. because what we want to do is pay players based on what they can generate for a university. And we're well beyond that, and we knew that was going to happen. Like, no one's surprised. You just hate to see, an agent, especially, I don't know the relationship between Rodney Hill and this agent and his family beforehand, especially if he was just a random guy that they hired. That's even worse. That's terrible. But there are a lot of college athletes, even high school athletes, getting really bad advice because there's an adult trying to make a dollar off that kid's name. And it's a shame and it's disgusting, and I hate to see it, but it's going to continue to happen. And unfortunately, TJ, we're going to hear more and more stories about this. This will not be the last one.
We will get right back to the video, but first, let me give some love to our good friends over at the National Mango Board, mangos.org. Make sure that you go check them out. They are the absolute best when it comes to promoting the best fruit on the planet. Now, if you argue with me or you want to debate that, go ahead and write me an email. I'm happy to do it, but mangoes are the best fruit on the planet. Hoping to find some in Dublin, hoping to be able to enjoy some over there. But when we come back on Labor Day, we will be partnering with them for our tailgate. We will also be doing an event, going to an event that they're doing on the day before Labor Day. That's the Sunday in Tallahassee. Make sure that you're buying mangoes when you're at your local grocer. Make sure that you're supporting the National Mango Board, who gives back to not only our channel, but FSU Athletics and is a big supporter there. Go see them at the BC game and any of the events they're at this year. You will not be disappointed with any of the giveaways, the goodies that they have, the different snacks, the different fruits they've got out. We appreciate them for supporting our channel and wanted to give them some quick love. Now back to the video. Yeah, it's hopefully, I will say this, because you're right. It's certainly not going to be the last one, but I would hope that, I've heard it described like this. I've heard this phrase a couple of times. When this new field of NIL started, there were a lot of bad actors, and there were a lot of people who jumped in this just to see how they could take advantage of it, right? And how they could benefit themselves. And I think that as time is going, some of that is getting weeded out. And so it is going to continue to happen, but I think it will happen less and less. And, guys that are on programs now, this is not just a Florida State problem. Like this, Florida's had issues with agent stuff, with recruits, with players. Like, I don't remember any Miami stories off the top of my head. Like, this is a problem. Like, I mean, you want to beat them every week every week that you play or every game that they play. You'd love for Florida and Miami to lose, but you don't necessarily want to see the kids that, are being promised things, getting screwed over by agents. Like the rivalry doesn't run that deep for me anyway. And so, but I do think that as programs get further and further along and, there's just more familiarity, there's, collectives can say like, hey, we kind of, you should watch out for this agent. We'll direct you over here to these guys because this is who you should be working with, whether that's our collective or others or whatever. I do think that will help. Bad people still exist and still do bad things. And so it's certainly not going to go away. I do think it goes down, but again, it is another thing that's, just kind of not a black eye because, there's been way more good with NIL than there's been bad. And so I'm not trying to paint it as like, well, there's another NIL issue, or anything like that. But it is one of the pitfalls. It is one of the bad things about it, and you really, especially with money involved, man, anytime there's money involved, it just has the potential to make things weird or make things hard or, have conversations with people about money. It is hard to do because it's awkward, it's not easy to do that. When I've had to do that, when other people have had to, just go do that. But when you've got people with bad motives and that are looking to screw people over, that makes it even worse. So I do hope Rodney Hill has a good year. He's a really good player. He's a really talented player. And so I do hope that at Arkansas, he crushes it. I hope he's their best player. They're not going to be very good this year. I don't know how many games they're going to win this year, but I'd love if he could. He's not a senior, right? He's still got, how long's Rodney Hill been around?
I don't know. With the COVID year, it's tough to understand it anymore. I think we have,
dude, all that's about
will be
to
the
be
end
done,
of the
though,
COVID years.
thankfully.
Yeah.
All of that is thankfully about to be done. So, but yeah, hopefully, redshirt sophomore. Yeah. So he's got more eligibility. So ideally, he can transfer again after Arkansas moves on from their coach and go somewhere good. Cause I do
bring him back.
Yeah, he's really talented. He's a kid that is going to be really good for somebody one day. Just hope that that Arkansas stench doesn't kill him, like because Arkansas is going to be terrible this year. But all that said, as frustrating as that situation was, I still give to the Battle's End every month. I would certainly encourage you to go do the same. I'm not telling you that NIL is bad by any means. It just, there are pitfalls with anything. I mean, there's been pitfalls. There's been bad things that have happened in college football for years. I saw NIL's things because this kid got screwed over by an agent. Meanwhile, Kirby Smart up there in Georgia is trying to battle Urban Meyer for the most arrests on a championship team. So yeah, yeah, it sucks that this kid got screwed over. It does. I'm not trying to make light of that, but bad things have happened in college football for quite a while. Or tight ends murdering people while they're in school in Gainesville. So yeah, bad things have been happening for a long time in this sport. So it ain't just NIL. So I will say that. That's not to say that I don't feel bad for Rodney Hill at all. But all that said, if you're not giving to the Battle's End, go sign up today. Thebattlesend.com.